It was a Sunday morning, afternoon, and a group of my neighbor boys, we were at North Hollywood Junior High School, playing football, touch football. And a guy comes up in a car and he stops right at the fence. I thought he was just going to watch the game. He kept hollering at us to come over. So we came over and he says, "You kids better get home." He says, "We're at war." And that's how we found out about it.
Life is good. We're safe, and at times it's very relaxing. That's what's so great about this country. But there's a reason all of what I just said is true. Some take it for granted, others could care less. Me? I thank 'em every chance I get. This sea of white headstones can be found in most major cities in America. I look out at a view like this and can't help but think of all those men who fought through hell. Some died on foreign soil, some came home. But every one of these headstones has a story to tell, with no one to tell it. All of these stories will go unheard for the rest of time. It's quiet here, but these headstones scream a million words for those who will listen. These were my heroes growing up. They didn't wear spandex, a cape. Hell, their underwear was underneath their pants. If it wasn't for the greatest generation, we would all be speaking Japanese or German. That's why telling the stories of those we have left is so beyond important to me. We are losing these heroes too rapidly. So my mission is to sit down with as many as I can, to let these unsung heroes have their chance to be heard, before it's too late.
I had an unfortunate thing happen when I was very young. I had what they call a mastoid, which is an ear infection, which left me partially deaf in one ear. And I had a problem all the way through school. I had to sit on the right-hand side of the class, put my good ear to the teacher. So when I got in high school, I was 17, senior, and I enlisted in the Air Corps. Well, I had to take some exams beforehand. The last thing they had me take was a physical, and I knew that ear was going to screw me up. But for some unknown reason, and I never could figure it out, the guy that was asking the questions that I was supposed to answer was leaning against the wall, and I was leaning against the same wall. And I think somehow the sound transferred through there because I passed the hearing test. Yeah, it was amazing. So here I am in the Air Corps with a bum ear. Eventually they caught it though, because you have to be honest, you know, subject to fine or whatever. Yeah. And so I got in and they discovered it after I was already in the service. So there was no way I could fly. And so they had to make me use something, and they made a mechanic out of me. Okay. So that was my job.
Okay. So I want to just kind of start back at the beginning. Do you remember where you were when you heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Yeah. It was a Sunday morning, afternoon, and a group of my neighbor boys, we were at North Hollywood Junior High School, playing football, touch football. And a guy comes up in a car and he stops right at the fence. I thought he was just going to watch the game. He kept hollering at us to come over. So we came over and he says, "You kids better get home." He says, "We're at war." And that's how we found out about it.
Yeah, being so close to the beach, I'm sure that probably was a little stressful time.
No, we weren't close to the beach.
Well, I just mean on the coast.
Oh yes.
Ish, kind of, I guess you
Oh,
could
yeah.
say. But was it a little stressful at that time?
I was too young to know if there was any stress. I delivered papers, and one of our our planes went over and the anti-aircraft, was a mistaken identity. But the Japs did shell some oil tanks off Ventura. But that's the only thing that ever happened locally in our area.
Okay. So why the Air Corps?
I had always had an interest in planes, built a lot of model planes, and I was kind of hoping to fly. I didn't realize that the air was going to be that big a problem, but they had very stringent rules about your physical being, and you had to be A1, even to be a gunner. I volunteered to be a gunner, right? But no, I can't fly.
Yeah, I remember my grandfather was trying to get into the Air Corps as well, but he was terrible at math, so he couldn't continue down that path as well. So
Yeah,
they were very, very strict with that kind of thing.
yeah, they were.
Yeah. Okay. So what was it like saying goodbye to your parents going off to boot camp?
No problem.
No.
One thing I missed was leaving my girlfriend behind. But other than that, no problem at all.
Yeah.
And they were pretty good about it. We were inducted at Fort MacArthur, and right away I just got my hair cut, and damned if they didn't. The worst thing you do is take all your hair off, but get a uniform, great fit on shoes, and then they let you go home for a couple of days.
Show off the uniform.
Yeah, and they folks had a picnic, and family get together and like to say goodbye. And my dad drove me back down to Fort MacArthur and shipped me off to Wichita Falls, Texas.
Okay. I was just at Fort MacArthur for Father's Day.
Oh,
Yeah, my grandfather was discharged there, so we went
nice.
and checked it out.
Where did you live?
We live here in Temecula, but he was in Chula Vista.
Chula Vista.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's about all there was. There was no big thing in our family. My dad and I were very close, and my folks divorced when I was young, and I didn't get along with my stepmother, so I was kind of glad to get out of there.
Yeah.
But I missed her. She was my high school sweetheart.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 72nd wedding anniversary.
I saw that. I saw he posted a video on the internet, and
Yeah.
I commented on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's very cool. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Would you guys have any big plans for the anniversary?
No. I still chase her, but I haven't been able to catch her.
All right. So you arrive at boot camp. What's kind of going on now?
Well, of course, it's a new experience, and the water in Texas is terrible. The oranges are grade C. That's about as worse as you can get. The only meat they had to serve was goat meat, which I didn't care for. But around the water was so bad, they had what they call Lister bags. And it was a canvas bag that sat under a tent. And they brought in tanker trucks from somewhere where the water was good and filled those Lister bags. So if you were lucky and didn't get an empty bag somewhere, well, you were able to get some drinkable water. I had her send me packs of Kool-Aid. So if we couldn't get the good water, I'd mix Kool-Aid and sugar. Made my own canteen.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what was one of the hardest things you had to deal with in boot camp?
Discipline. Chicken shit stuff. I mean, these second lieutenants who just got out of college, and of course their degree gave him an automatic officership, and they didn't know up from down, and so I stayed away from them as much as I could.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, inspections were a joke, but that's mainly what they did was oversee crap like that.
Okay. So, walk me through graduation day. You're graduating boot camp. What are you feeling?
Nothing. Matter of fact, there was no real ceremony or anything. Uh, we we were wondering where we were going to go, because they had no training now. All boot camp is just they familiarize you with weapons, a pistol and a rifle, and show you how to put a pup tent together, and they hike you a bit. And the physical training was good. That was put you in good shape. And I got to say, the food that they served that you could eat was pretty darn good. I mean, they didn't cheat there. But anyhow, it was about 6 weeks. And orders came out, and my orders were to go to Salina, Kansas, Smoky Hill, Army Air Base. Oh, no, I'm back up. To Amarillo, Texas. And that's where I got my training on mechanics on the B17 and the B29 and the P47. Yeah. So from Wichita Falls, I went to Amarillo.
Okay. At what point did they find out about your hearing? Was it in boot camp?
It was in boot camp.
Okay.
They do a lot of physicals and stuff there, yeah. And there were two doctors. And I told them, I said, I can hear pretty good, one ear, and about half in the other. And they put me through some tests. And one of the tests was they put a noise in your ear and then reduced the volume of the noise. And the minute it got to the point where you couldn't hear it, you pushed a button. And then they did it in reverse. There was nothing, when you first hear the noise, push the button. So there's no way you can cheat. I learned later, a friend of mine was a ear, nose, and throat man, and he says, you could have fudged a little because most people have a normal sound in their ear. It's never completely quiet. But I didn't know that. I couldn't cheat.
Okay, so if you had a preference, were you wishing to go to the Pacific, or were you hoping to go to the Atlantic Theater?
I was too late for the European operation. Yeah. Matter of fact, in the Amarillo, we went, the B29 setup was mock-up models and stuff, and the actual planes there to work on. But the B29 wasn't, the B17. The B17 wasn't built anymore. It was just a maintenance program, and that was a 6 weeks course. We graduated from that, got a diploma, and we figured, okay, they're going to send us out. Well, the B-17s were both in the Atlantic and the Pacific. And that was on a Friday. Saturday, they took all the mock-up, all the models down, the 17 models down that didn't apply to 29. Some are interchangeable. And set up all the new models for the 29. So now they sent us, we were the last school on the 17 and the first school at Amarillo on the 29s. So that's another 6 weeks. And so we graduated from there, and then they sent us to Salina, Kansas, to Smoky Hill, and that's where the B-29s were. And that would meant that we'd be going to the Pacific because no 29s went to Europe. And just worked on there for a while, and Smoky Hill was kind of an odd situation. Most of the 29s were based in Florida in the South, but they had weather problems. So the first thing they did, because the planes were expensive, they flew them out of the area. Well, they came to Salina. When they built the Smoky Hill, they made the runways long enough These big planes could come in. So every now and then we would see a new fighter planes. We knew that they were having a hurricane or something in the south. But anyhow, we worked on the planes there, and then we got shipping orders to go overseas to the Pacific. And they shipped us to Salt Lake City, Camp Kearns. This is the overseas replacement depot for the Pacific. Well, because of these delays of going to 2 schools and everything, you build up points. And when you got so many points, they discharge you. So we get to Camp Kearns in Utah and get ready to go overseas, and they say, no, you can't do that because you got too many points now. We're going to get you over the, have to turn around and send you all the way back. So they got to find something for you to do here. Well, I played a little clarinet. So you got a bass band? Oh yeah. So he said, well, we'll send you over. You'll have to take a audition. So I sent me over, and the chief warrant officer, he said, I got a horn for you. He said, I said, well, I got my own. He says, okay, use your own. He says, play Stars and Stripes Forever. So I tootled it off. Been playing since I was the 2nd grade, no problem. Great, he said, glad to have you. So I played in the band until my discharge came up, and they sent me to Sacramento and kicked me out.
Okay.
How much of a story?
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, there is one amusing thing that happened. When we got out of boot camp, in boot camp you were with all Californians, you know. But when they sent you to Amarillo, they broke you up so that very few Californians went together. When we got to Amarillo, there were Pennsylvanians, you know, guys from all over. But there was one guy that was from Bishop, California, and made good friends with him. Hell of a good-looking guy. He could be a movie star. But he was a little short, and he was kind of shy. Anyhow, we became buddies. His name was Adrian Conway. Anyhow, he had a problem with girls. I mean, he couldn't meet girls, but if somebody introduced him to some boy, then that was fine. And of course, the girls loved him because he looked a good-looking guy. And every place we went, that son of a gun, we'd go to USO, and I would get a girl, and of course he'd come over, I'd introduce him, and he'd take the girl away from me. And it really kind of pissed me off. But, so anyhow, we get to Salina, Kansas, and the same thing happens. We're at the USO, and there's this good-looking girl, and so I introduce myself, and we're dancing, and here comes my buddy. And I kind of whispered to her, I said, I'm going to lose you to him. I said, because of what happened, you know, and I explained to her what was going on. And she laughed, and she said, okay, that's cool. So a week later, we're at the same USO, and sure enough, he and I go in together. She's there, and she's smiling, and I said, what are you smiling about? She said, I got a surprise for you. Got to wait about a half an hour. 30 minutes later, this girl comes in, her twin sister. So I had no trouble with girls after that. They took our identical. So he got one twin and I got the other, and I didn't lose the girl again. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great time there.
So what was it like stateside during the war? Were people stressed, or were they feeling pride? Or?
Friendliest people. They would come to the USO and they would invite us to their home, you know, for dinner. On one occasion in Amarillo, the town druggist I called him a do-gooder because he was always doing things for the veterans. He took us overnight to a campground. Now, Amarillo is a mile high and it's flat as a table, but there are canyons. and they took us out to this canyon. You drive down into the canyon, and there's trees, and there's a little water, you know, and a cabin, and they paid the whole thing. We spent the time with them. Had a great breakfast. I thought it was sausage and eggs. Turned out to be turned out to be calf's brains and eggs. I about upset. But yeah, no, people were great everywhere.
Cool.
Everywhere.
Okay. So what went through your head when you heard that the Japanese had surrendered?
It was good news, but we knew it was going to happen because of dropping the bomb. I told you it was an idiot or a nitwit or something. I don't know. Most people didn't have to go through that. We warned them, but it didn't do any good. Yeah. That was a sad thing. There's one thing that did happen, though. They say that they criticize us for interning the Japanese here. When I was 12 years old, and I joined the Boy Scouts, and my patrol leader was a Japanese, nice kid, spoke English. I mean, he was Americanized. His folks owned a flower shop on Western Avenue in Los Angeles. Anyhow, I was until I was guess I was about 13, and the kid's name was Itsuro Fuji. And he said, Jim, he said, you're going to be the new patrol leader. I said, why? And he said, well, my folks are moving back to Japan. And this was in 1940. And I said, why? He said, well, not quite sure, but folks got a notice that they'd like him to return. So Dad's selling the flower shop, and the whole family's going back to Japan. Well, then, 41, the war breaks out. Japan was calling all the people back that they could. Well, suppose some of the people were still friendly to the Japanese, but didn't go back. Now you don't want these kind of people here. And so for that reason, the internment camps were a good thing. A lot of innocent Japanese there, but there were a lot of people that, you know, you don't know whether to trust them or not. So that part, I think the internment was fine. Yeah. And of course, the Japanese, with the war, they needed as many people that spoke English and could talk to prisoners. I never ever heard what happened to Itsuro.
So if there's one thing you can have future generations remember about your generation, what would you want them to think about?
Well, that's a good question. I really don't know how to answer that. It was a sad time for all the young guys, you know, that didn't come back. But what are you going to do? It's a job that had to be done. Fortunately, I had an uncle in Germany. He came back. Another uncle was in the Coast Guard, and he came back. So I didn't lose a member of the family. And I didn't lose any close friend. There's another good story. I had an uncle who, when my grandparents passed away, they had a $6,000. And He had 3 children, one of them my dad, my uncle, and an aunt. My dad was the executor of the estate, so each kid got $2,000. Well, my uncle, Lou, took the $2,000 and blew part of it on a brand new Lincoln Continental car. And of the three, he was the wild one. And he was downtown Los Angeles, and his car was parked out in front of a bar. He was in the bar having a beer. And these two guys come in. Hey, who owns that car out there? And my uncle said, oh God, somebody ran into my car. He said, we want to talk to you. He says, we're coming over. He said, we'll buy you a beer. They're sitting talking. Well, the gist of the thing was, these two guys wanted to rob a bank, but they needed a high-powered car and a driver. He said, we're going to cut you in on a third. You don't have to go in you don't have to handle guns or nothing. All you got to do when we get in the car is drive this thing and get out of there. Well, my uncle, who was, yeah, here's $1. This was Depression time, and yeah, he went for it. Well, he got away with it. They robbed the bank, and he got away. But my Uncle Lou was spending money that his wife knew he didn't have. He finally confessed to her what he did. Well, she didn't know any policemen, but she knew a fireman. So she told this fireman friend of hers what he did. And of course, he told the police. Police arrested my uncle. He was indicted, indicted, and went to San Quentin. Well, at that time, the war broke out, or they were getting ready. And Washington said, well, let's go to the prisons and see if we can let some of these nonviolent guys, you know, go if they will enlist, and we'll turn them free. Well, they gave my uncle the option. And he, being an idiot, he jumped for it. So he winds up in Patton's Tank Corps as a mechanic. Well, we corresponded. He was in Africa. He said, I wish to hell I'd stayed at San Quentin. He said, it's hotter than hell here. He says, those lucky Germans got these air-cooled tanks, and we got the water-cooled ones. We can't keep them running. He says, I just assume we...
And you got Patton riding your back.
Yeah, but he stayed, and he was... I got an honorable discharge, and he didn't have to go back to jail. That was a weird time.
That's very cool.
But that's about it.
Okay. So, you guys met in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you do during the war?
She went to Redlands
Yes.
University.
Okay.
Yes.
And
I was,
she had a pretty good voice. She sang in the glee clubs, and they put on these musicals. Those most like the Pirates of Penzance and
Naughty Marietta.
that kind of. Anyhow, and I played in the orchestra, so that's how we met.
Oh, very cool. And how long you guys been married? You said.
72 years.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, she was 20 when we married. I was 21. She's 92 and I'm 93.
Very cool. Okay. Anything else you can think of?
No,
Are you in contact with anyone you served with at all?
I have been, but in high school there were there were 7 of us that got together after the war, and 6 of them were Navy. I was the only Air Corps guy, so you know who won the war. The Navy. But they're all gone now.
If you could tell them something, what would you tell them?
Actually had more fun after the war. Yeah. We got together once a year,
That's cool.
and we go out for lunch, and Till our war, they all had war stories. I didn't have. The thing that held me back, I guess, luckily, was the extra 6 weeks on that double training. Oh, when I graduated from high school, I was 17, and that was in March. But I graduated in the last part of January. So I had to wait a month for them to call me up. Well, I didn't sit around doing nothing. So I went to UCLA and I signed up for some courses. But I told the Air Corps what I did. They said, no problem. Said, finish out your term at UCLA and we'll send you your induction order when you're through with your classes. So from February to June, I should have been in the service. I wasn't. So there's 4 or 5 months. Then the extra month and a half of school, if I'd have added that time on to when they inducted me, I would have been overseas in the Pacific. Not in any danger. I'd be in some hangar somewhere working on an airplane. But those things all contributed by not doing much.
It's interesting how all those little factors
Yeah,
come into play.
yeah. And the war being almost over and being dollar conscious, so the government, they were smart. They just send me over and I'd be there a week and they have to send me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's the secret of being married this long?
Being so handsome, debonair, good looking, wealthy. No, I got the best wife in the world. She's a good cook. She puts up with my crap, and you know, I won't say we haven't had arguments. We do, but
Everyone
that's
does.
good.
Everyone does.
Makes me try harder to make up. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Very cool. Anything else you guys can think of you want to ask him since he's got to tell the truth right now?
I think he covered it very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you taking your time out with me today. I really do.
The only medal I ever got was the good conduct medal, and that was a mistake. I think they just did it to say thank you for taking a couple years out of my life.
Yeah. Okay.
They were good years. They were good years
Yeah.
because he came home looking good, fit as a fiddle.
In a uniform.
I think this is, yeah, and I think this is reason that he still can put in a 6-hour day chopping wood and pulling weeds and everything else.
Yeah.
in
Are
his
those
90s.
are those your horses out front?
Only one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the fellow looks after the horses. He has all of it, and the alpaca.
Okay.
There's 3 miniatures, 2 big horses, and an alpaca.
Okay.
And-
So you're still out there chopping wood and
Oh,
doing yard work?
Oh yeah,
Oh, good for you.
yeah. I still have to keep. Got 5 acres here, and I wish it was 2.5 acres.
Very cool. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for replying to me. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Well, I wish I could tell you how I single-handedly knocked off a group of chaps, but never happened.
Yeah. It's all right. Without you doing what you did, what was your specific thing on the plane? Was it like conveyor belt, or was it just fixing bits and pieces? Or?
No, I worked on the engine. The B29, well, starting with the P47, which is the Thunderbolt, was a radial engine. Cylinders around in a circle. And then the B17s, you had 2 rows of, and then the B29s, you had 3 rows. But anyhow, there was a cover that went over the top of the engine that had to be bolted down. And there was about, I don't know, 20, 30 bolts around. Well, originally when the 29s were put out, these bolts would come loose. When they were flying, the vibration of the engine is tremendous. And these bolts would come loose, and they would allow air to come in through here, and it screwed up the carburation system, getting too much air. So what they did, they drilled holes in the heads of these bolts, and then you had a copper wire that you run in and out of the bolts, and then twisted the wire together so that if they did come loose, they could not come out. And that principally was my job, was putting those covers on and wiring those bolts. I was the littlest guy on the engine change crew, so it was easier for me than some of these big haunch guys.
So they just shoved you up in there, and you could fit into tight spots.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, there were stands that you stood on, but you still had to bend over and get in the wood to do it. And there were a lot of big other jobs. The jets were in progress, but they weren't in the planes yet. So, because to change an engine took several hours. But the jets, I understand, came later. You could do in less than an hour. And jack them up, fold them in, and take them off, you know. But not so with the radio.
Cool.
I got one question.
Yeah.
I got one question for you, Bobs. I'll stand over here. If there was one lesson you could take away from your experience during the service, what would that lesson be?
The lesson be that I could take away?
Yeah.
KP.
KP? What's KP? Kitchen
Police. Mess duty. Worst damn job. That's crazy. Every place we went, there was always an inspection, especially the mess halls, because if you didn't pass inspection, they had a giant fly that stood on a pedestal as you walked in the door to get you, and that told everybody that came in there that the place really wasn't sanitary, you know, up to code. Well, because these were air bases and we had to pull KP, one of the jobs was to keep the trash cans clean. You dump the cans of garbage and stuff into the trucks and haul it away, but the cans, when they're dumped, had to be clean. Well, that was a job, being the letter D, and they went alphabetically. That was one of the first jobs that were called for. Well, being on an air base, we had all the high-octane gasoline we needed. So I would go out and get a couple buckets of gasoline, and I'd clean those cans with the gasoline, which done a hell of a job. They looked like brand new. So we always had a good rating because our trash cans were, I was the guy that was responsible for that. But I hated that job.
Very cool.
Hello everyone, my name is Wyatt Roos, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what Patreon is and how you can help support my project. Patreon is a monthly private subscription where content is made just for you. Donating even $5 a month gives me the ability to document the true stories of the Second World War and its heroes. You get access to first-hand experiences of the war and what it was really like to be there. When you support this project, you're supporting Unsung Heroes directly to continue my mission. With your support, I'm able to spend more time on meaningful work that will have a positive impact. Join me on Patreon and let's not let our heroes be forgotten. So come on this journey with me and experience the true stories of the Second World War and its heroes. Thank you very much for watching this video. I have to go get ready and do an interview with a Pearl Harbor survivor. And you know what? Why don't you come with me? So I always start off my interviews asking where you were when you heard about Pearl Harbor, but you were actually there, weren't you?
Right.
Right, okay.
Right aboard the West Virginia.
So how did you not only survive Pearl Harbor and World War II, and then also you're what, 96?
97.
97. So how did you make it that long?
My faith and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ.
Wow.
The power of the Holy Spirit is what guided me in everything I did and said.
Wow. Thank you for taking your time out with
You
me
bet.
today. I appreciate it.
You bet, Wyatt.
Follow me on these interviews that will take you to the past through the eyes of these amazing veterans. For full interviews and to donate to Unsung Heroes Project, please visit the link below. Your donations, likes, and shares, and social media support are greatly appreciated.
God, we don't know what our fate might be. We only ask that if die we must, we'll die as men would die, without complaining or pleading, safe in the feelings that we have done our best for what we know is right. Dear God, watch over us, our families, watch over us in the fire ahead, and with us now as we pray to you. Move out.